Should you buy Ghost of Tsushima in 2023?
Let's take his description. Okay.
Ghost of Tsushima is focused on samurai open-world action stealth gameplay combined with a heavy focus on story that almost all Sony exclusives have in common. The story part, not the other stuff. Tsushima focuses on the real-life Mongol invasion of the island Tsushima, a real place you can actually visit while telling a fictional story using that invasion as a foundation to provide our main character Jin Sakai a chance to develop and for us to connect with him. Jin Sakai is the last surviving member of Clan Sakai and follows his code to a T, but throughout the story not only will his code be tested but his will to survive, and everything he thinks he knows about life and death will be too.
What does honor mean to you?
I guess protecting people. The ones who can't fight for themselves.
Tsushima is where this all takes place, a gorgeous island decimated by the Mongol invasion, leaving many scars while dropping a bombardment of beautiful forests, villages and secrets to discover throughout your game time of around 20 to 30 hours. Side activities are plentiful while a little mundane and do fall into the sinkhole that I like to call the Ubisoft landmine. Yeah, I just made that up, but Tsushima does tend to opt for quantity over quality throughout most of its side activities. Bamboo stands, hot springs, enemy encampments are plentiful, all providing a valuable reward for completing them, thankfully making most of the side content actually enjoyable to complete. However, I have played Ghost of Tsushima since launch, so my view on the side activities will naturally sour the more I play them, so take my criticisms with that in mind. That being said, there are side missions focused on specific characters, and each character has their own mini story that you can get to experience as you complete each of these side missions. I think that was a brilliant way to let players get invested into these characters without forcing them into main missions, so I really like this approach of giving you the option to learn more about these characters naturally rather than it being forced onto you. I think it's a much better way to make the connections with these characters feel more significant because you've gone out of your way to learn more about these people. My least favourite side missions were the Ishikawa side missions. He's the master of the bow, and while the story that was told was actually one of my favourites of the side missions, his actual gameplay in those missions tend to do the same thing over and over again, where you'd follow him, set up an ambush and repeat, which was really unfortunate. So some of the side missions could be better, and some of them are significantly better than others, but they aren't bad, just repetitive. As you complete these missions, you do unlock specific skills and outfits, etc., which we will get into in the gameplay section. While you're completing all the open world stuff, you will also be doing the main story, as each section of Tsushima is locked until you reach a certain point in the story. Don't worry, that sounds bad, but it actually really works due to how the story is told. As mentioned earlier, you follow Jin Sakai, who is forced to make life-changing decisions which affect his entire outlook on life while fighting off the invaders, and sure, it's not the most creative story, but following Jin was such a great experience the first time, and for me it only gets better on each replay. Ghost of Tsushima focuses on so many different themes varying from honor, legacy, family, revenge, betrayal, among many others, while trying to blend it all together with an open world setting. But the most important part is Jin and his allies that he gains over the course of this fairly short story. The side characters like Lord Shimura, Yuna and Taka are all extremely likable, but all have conflicting ideologies and ideas on how to face what seems to be an unbeatable threat. So these characters bouncing off each other constantly is what keeps the story driving forward while raising the stakes so you don't get bored.
You, samurai, and your speeches.
I did say it's short, but I also said that the game is like 20 to 30 hours long, and both are true. The story without the open world fluff is probably 10, maybe 15 hours long if I'm feeling generous. The story itself is quite short, but man, do they cram in a lot of story within those 10 hours without rushing anything. I was really surprised by how impactful the story gets in its second act. The first act, while having a really strong opening, was just very bleh. It doesn't really stay consistent because it's throwing everything at you. They want you to learn the skills, they want you to understand the combat, so it doesn't really give you much chance to breathe in the story, take it all in. But once you get to Act 2, it all starts to make sense. The emotional beats hit, the writing hits, and the ending is pretty much perfect for this kind of story. All the character arcs come together really nicely. I didn't cry, but I was pretty damn close the first time round. I can't lie. Pacing isn't perfect and some of the writing is pretty predictable, some characters get far less screen time than they deserved, and some of the voice acting can be a little over the top, but honestly, this is a pretty solid story that pulls the right emotions out of you while not losing the valuable tension that is built up throughout its short story. It may have soured a little bit with multiple playthroughs, but the fact I still love it despite its flaws tells you enough about my thoughts. Jin Sakai may not be an Arthur Morgan level character by any means, but the journey you go on with him is pretty unforgettable, I think. The emotional beats just make it memorable. Tsushima's gameplay is heavily focused on close range parrying with a sprinkle of range combat thrown in there via bows and kunai, and was probably the thing I think most people were most excited about. Rightfully so, I think. We've been waiting for an Assassin's Creed game set anywhere that resembled Japan, and Tsushima filled that void while not being a carbon copy of that series. Jin has 4 stances. It's basically Jedi Fallen Order, but with those 3 extra stances. You unlock these by killing leaders, and you get them all fairly quickly once you get a groove going. The combat in Tsushima is similar to a bunch of games, but as I've said, it's closer to Jedi Fallen Order. You've got to pick your timings for your attacks while also mastering the ability to counter to unleash devastating attacks on your foes. It will take a minute to get a hang of it, but once you do, you'll be slicing through large groups of enemies like butter, bathing in their blood. Enemy variety will push you to your limit eventually, but once you learn their movesets, you're pretty much set for the rest of the game, but there are multiple difficulties that you can choose from. My favourite being a lethal, because that's the ultimate swordplay experience you're going to get from Tsushima. Every slice could be fatal from your enemies, but your damage also gets buffed, making it more like a Souls type game, just without the incredibly high skill gap that you'll need to complete a game like Dark Souls. That's not here. Lethal is fairly easy once you get the hang of it. Along the way, you'll unlock skills to add more options to take out enemies while improving your various stances and ghost abilities. It's pretty much perfectly balanced until Act 3 when you've unlocked most of the skills, and all of them are pretty beneficial. Some of them do take the typical, oh, you can take 2 guys out instead of 1 skill upgrade like a stealth takedown like the Arkham games, but most do add something to the gameplay loop rather than making every upgrade a double of what you have, so you can unlock like smoke bombs, extra kunai, stuff like that. Your outfits and customization matter too. Along your journey you will upgrade and craft various outfits with their own effects on how you play Tsushima. Some are more combat focused like the Samurai Clan armor, whereas some are more stealth focused like the Ghost armor. And while I do like this system, it is a little basic. I'd like to see a proper outfit customization system that you can fine tune to your own liking both visually and gameplay wise in a potential sequel. The Iki Island DLC adds more options and actually has my favourite outfit ability, which gives you extra attacks when you pull off a perfect counter or dodge. There's nothing more satisfying than slicing enemies down when you've countered them perfectly. It just sounds and feels perfect. Oh, and the Iki Island DLC story is about 4 hours long. It's the DLC and it's great. It dives into Jin's psyche and his past and is a wonderful addition to the story. Stealth is very Assassin's Creed though. You sneak, shoot arrows, throw smoke bombs and stab your way through stealth sections, and that is about it. This is not Metal Gear Solid or Splinter Cell. Tsushima does fall victim to the pretty piss poor stealth system that plagues a lot of open world games. The AI is really bad, and honestly the stealth is just boring. I really hope a bigger emphasis is put on stealth in the sequel considering how integral it was to the story of the game, but unfortunately the stealth does suck. The gameplay overall though, pretty fantastic, while also having a fair bit to improve in a possible sequel, specifically with stealth. Considering all these factors, is Ghost of Tsushima worth buying in 2023? I absolutely think it's worth buying in 2023, especially for a discounted price. I haven't even talked about the multiplayer mode Legends, which is pretty amazing in itself, but I have a dedicated review for that mode that you can watch by clicking on the end screen right now. Thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and remember to keep it classic.